it's really interesting how 2024 ended up playing out for the Minnesota Vikings because initially it was going to be about J.J. McCarthy and it's going to be his team. It's going to be his year. Vikings fans finally are past the Kirk Cousins era and you're building around a young quarterback and let's see what gives you. Let's see what he's got. You'd like to win games, but the most important thing is J.J. McCarthy shows up, balls out, and establishes that he could be the long-term answer at the quarterback position. Like, that's what 2024 season was supposed to be about for the Vikings, period. Until it wasn't because J.J. McCarthy gets hurt in the preseason. He ends up missing the entire year. And what happens instead is the Minnesota Vikings become a major surprise when it looked like there was absolutely no reason for excitement, absolutely no reason to want to care about them at all. They went 14-3. They got a big, like, career-saving type of season out of Sam Darnold until he came back to earth later in the year naturally. The defense under defensive coordinator Brian Flores was top 5 in points allowed and notable for how they're blitzing and getting to the quarterback, the NASCAR packages, whatever else, blah, blah, blah. And they went from a team that seemed like they were going to have nothing to really be excited about other than Justin Jefferson last year, and they were only going to win a few games to, winning 14 games and losing in the playoffs in the wild card round to the Rams, where, again, Darnold looked really, really bad. So it was one of these things where the Vikings pulled this really nice season out of their ass, but at the end of the day, it just naturally wasn't enough. I will give credit to Kwesi and the Vikings front office and that organization for one thing. They didn't make the New York Giants Daniel Jones mistake. They didn't fool themselves. They didn't get fooled. They didn't take their eyes off of the prize, which is J.J. McCarthy's opportunities, J.J. McCarthy's development. They let Sam Darnold leave. They let him go. Let him go to Seattle. Let him be the guy there. Let them pay for him. Don't fool yourselves, because what you saw late in the year is the ultimate reality of who Sam Darnold is when the chips are on the line, right? Instead, focus on your original plan for 2024. Now it's the 2025 plan. Let's find out what you got in J.J. McCarthy and let's build around him. This organization put a big priority in the offseason on addressing the trenches in free agency on both sides of the ball. On offense, they signed away Will Freese and Ryan Kelly from the Indianapolis Colts to bolster the interior of their offensive line. And then on defense, they bring in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, like two guys that should be able to unleash some problems for opposing offensive lines, running backs, and quarterbacks in that Brian Flores defensive scheme. And because of some previous trades, the Vikings weren't exactly in a great spot in terms of this draft. But they did get Donovan Jackson with the 24th pick. He should be a quality long-term starter on that offensive line in the interior at guard. But has some flexibility if he needed to pitch out to tackle because he did that pretty competently last year at Ohio State. So a team poised to go with the official start of year one with J.J. McCarthy that's invested significantly on the offensive line, and that's how you fucking do it. Now, what does that mean for the Vikings? Where are they at right now as we look at them for 2025? I think their strengths, you got to start with Kevin O'Connell, obviously. Like, he was a coach of the year dude last year. Like, the job he did was just incredible. And from like a pure play calling, pure game management, game situation awareness standpoint, this dude is elite. He's absolutely elite. He's not quite on the Sean McVay level, but he's pretty fucking high up there. I'll say that. And it all starts with him. And then obviously you've got Justin Jefferson, whether it's him or Jamar Chase, 1A or 1B in terms of best wide receivers in the National Football League. He can make a lot of things happen and opens up a lot of things for the rest of your offense. And then you look at that offensive line. You still got Darisaw and O'Neal at the tackles, and now you've added Donovan Jackson and Will Freese and Ryan Kelly. So you got 3 new starters on that offensive line with a couple of really good bookend tackles. This should be a strongly performing offensive line unit for the Minnesota Vikings in 2025. And then you look at their pass rush. When you talk about Grenard and you talk about Van Ginkel, and now you add in a Javon Hargrave and a Jonathan Allen, like, this should be a team that continues, along with Brian Flores, this kind of blitzing scheme and his blitz reliance at times. This should be a team that's able to get after opposing quarterbacks and cause some trouble like they did last year. but I still think there are several question marks that exist for them. How's this offense going to look in the first 6 weeks without Jordan Addison? Easy for me to say. Jordan Addison. Like, yeah, he's not Justin Jefferson, but boy, it sure makes it a lot harder to defend the Vikings when you got Justin Jefferson on one side and you got Jordan Addison on the other side, and Jordan Addison is a playmaker too, right? Um, so it puts the Vikings at a disadvantage, means they're going to have to lean a little bit more on TJ Hawkins, and they're going to have somebody else step up at wide receiver. Somebody's going to have to, so teams aren't doubling and bracket coveraging just JJ all the time. How's that secondary going to perform? Yeah, you've got a great pass rush and you bolstered it, but secondary wasn't great at times last year, and I don't see where it got a whole lot better. And then I wonder, like, defensively, will teams start to adjust to Brian Flores' blitz tendencies, the blitzing more on first and second down versus third down? Like, is the blitz going to be as successful? Teams going to adjust and change their schemes and change what they do to accommodate for that? And then ultimately, obviously, the most important question is, what are you going to get out of J.J. McCarthy? It is such an unknown right now. It is such a crapshoot. I mean, he's a guy that you took 10th overall with last year's draft, but he didn't play a regular season snap last year. He's coming off of a major injury. Like, what are you going to get out of this kid? And frankly, it's the only question that you really care about if they answer this year. And you hope, if you're a Vikings fan, that the answer is yes. J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell will be a long-time successful pairing in the NFL. And J.J. McCarthy is going to be the face of the franchise for the Vikings for a long time to come and not be some Christian Ponder type. That's your hope. But it's a question mark right now, and it's a big question mark, a significant one that only time is going to lay out to see what that looks like. In terms of their schedule, similar to what I mentioned with the Bears, it holds true here. It's a really tough schedule on paper, at least. And one interesting stretch here for the Vikings in their schedule early on is weeks 4 and 5. They're going to play back-to-back international games against the Steelers and the Browns. So I think this is the first time in NFL history a team has played 2 consecutive international games. So I wonder how the Vikings are going to respond to that. But then, you get out of that bye week, week 6, and you come back in week 7, and this schedule, at least again on paper, looks pretty brutally tough. You got the Eagles, you got to go to the Chargers, you got to go to the Lions, hosting Baltimore and Chicago, then on the road to face the Packers, then face the Seahawks on the road, hosting Washington, and then going on the road to Dallas. Like, right there, that's the stretch of the season. That period of time, that 9 games or whatever the hell that is, like, that determines how this Viking season goes. That's what it does. Too many marquee teams, too many big matchups. If the Vikings can go like 5-4 in that stretch, then they might have a shot at double-digit wins and sliding into the playoffs. But I think the reality is you're going to have J.J. McCarthy. It's going to take time for him to get adjusted. The Vikings kind of caught lightning in a bottle last year, but it feels like the kind of thing where you can kind of come crashing back down to earth at least a little bit in 2025. It's kind of what I envision happening. I look at this and I say, to me, the Vikings will be a tough team, but only an average team. And I think they're going to bring up the rear in this division, and they're going to finish 7-10. But if you're a Vikings fan, again, that record should feel secondary. You won 14 games last year. That's great until it didn't really fucking matter because you shit the bed in the playoffs. The much more important thing is that J.J. McCarthy shows you he's the guy. Because if he does, the entire trajectory of the organization changes pretty significantly, pretty quickly. That said, if he doesn't, if you're the Vikings, you're in some bad spots. So we're going to find out. But yeah, Viking fans, you can go and skull and all that other bullshit. I don't care. I think your team is going to bring up the butt-naked rear of this division. Suck on it.